Hey everyone, my name is Patrick, and welcome to the Undignified podcast, where we talk about worship, the church, and everything else. Today we're having a conversation with my friend Nathan Gaddis. Now, Nathan is someone who has had many different positions in many different areas of the church, but now he runs his own company that helps churches with their online presence. And this can be a really tricky scene. So if this is something that interests you, or if this is something that you're looking to learn more about, I know this conversation is going to be helpful for you. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Undignified podcast, everybody. It is me, Patrick again. I am here with my friend Nathan. Nathan, how are you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
I am good. Today is like my day off. It's my Friday. Huge air quotes there. And I want, in my time off, I want to spend time with my good friend Nathan all the way down in Florida. So here we are.
Wow. Wow.
Yes. Great choice. Can you I want to talk to you about what you do. But before we get into what you do, can you give us just a brief, where are you at? How are you doing? What are you working on? Is there anything that you're passionate about? Just wherever you want to take it. Just tell us how you're doing, man. What you're up to.
I'm up to a lot. So I've got 4 kids, almost 18-year-old, almost 15 or 16-year-old, almost 15-year-old, and a 10-year-old. So
and a dog.
And a dog, an incredible dog.
Incredible.
And a beautiful wife.
And a beautiful wife.
I mean, I do have a beautiful wife.
Yes.
She holds everything together for us.
She does.
So,
she does.
But we're doing good, man. Getting ready to have a kid graduate high school is pretty nuts, but I think we're navigating it fairly well. So yeah, it's good.
You and we've had kind of like an internet relationship for years. Met at a conference, like a tiny little church conference, eons ago, stayed in touch, kind of kept up with life. And so then I end up in Florida. You came to New York a couple times. We hung out. Mm-hmm. My family comes down to Florida last summer. And the first thing I see when we hang out and we walk into your home is the bourbon cabinet.
Yes.
The house,
yes.
The house of bourbon, if you will. And you made me a cocktail that I've asked you the name of it 17 times, but I keep forgetting. What was it?
It's called the Anthem Spirit. I actually found it in Nashville, at a bar in Franklin, Tennessee, just south of Nashville.
It's one of the best things I've ever had in my entire life.
Same. Like it was so good when I had it. I had to learn. Like I literally messaged the bartender, found out who they were, messaged the bartender and said, I need to know how to make Anthem Spirit. And they were gracious enough to pass that information on to me. And so I make it for friends because it's just such a great cocktail. And I have a passion for bourbon. Just not just collecting it, but sharing it. Like I feel like bourbon is meant to be shared. So if I get a pretty rare bottle, the first thing that I want to do with it is share it with somebody. So I'm glad you got to experience it because it's kind of like part of my hospitality in a sense. So yeah.
It's, and I have to be honest, we walked in and you're like, hey, I'm gonna, would you guys like to, I'd love to make you guys like a specialty cocktail. And you're like, do you like this bourbon or that bourbon? I'm like, bro, all of that is wasted on me because I'm just not cool enough to appreciate all of that. So just whatever. But it changed my life. I think I've texted you more than once to be like, tell me how to make that thing. I've got to do it again now because I've lost all those text messages. But you are a bourbon connoisseur. You are a father of many. You have an amazing dog, pretty cool wife, and you're in Florida, but you also are in this this niche, this kind of specialized area where you run a company called D373, right?
Mm-hmm.
That basically helps churches with their digital presence. Could you actually, that's how I would explain it based on my knowledge. Can you explain, I want to talk about kind of how you got there, but can you explain what your company does in your current role, just briefly, before we kind of talk about the way you became the guy who runs that company?
Right. So I've been in ministry in local church ministry for about, 18 years,
Wow.
19 years or so. I've been a worship pastor for most of that time.
Yeah.
And so, I kind of came into worship pastor world from the music industry world. And so a lot of people will, a lot of worship leaders, worship pastors, they long to go from local church to music industry world. I did it in reverse.
Yeah.
And so I started that journey back in 2004, 2005, and then it just kind of took off. Man, I didn't know what I was doing that way back then, but I knew what I knew from the music industry, and I know what I know about music, and I'm confident in both of those things. So what I learned and took away from the industry was helping me be a better worship leader, worship pastor. Quite honestly, if you want me to be super vulnerable, when I first entered ministry, I didn't know the first thing about being a worship pastor at all. Like I just knew, I knew music, and I thought, how hard could this be? And
I
quickly learned.
That's so honest and vulnerable. And at the same time, I'm like, yeah, it pretty much checks out.
Yeah. I mean, it does. So I found myself in the first 6 months going, wow, this is way different than I anticipated it being. Sure. So, and I had no idea that my love for people would outweigh my love for music. And that was the thing that was surprising to me back then.
Sure.
Because I really, really, really thought that, music was going to be the way that I moved throughout my career pastoring. And I if I were to be honest, was I like what they call called to ministry, back then? I don't know if I was.
Sure.
But within the first 6 months to a year, I realized, man, I'm called to people, because I love this and doing life with these people and leading these people. And so it kind of morphed into, now I'm a full-fledged worship pastor after a few years, and got ordained and all of that stuff.
Did you say got ordained or God ordained?
Got. I became ordained.
I say why not both?
But
I say why not both?
Why not both? Yeah, it's kind of both. Yeah, both and.
That's great.
So about back in 2013, I had. My wife and I were sitting with a friend of ours, a close friend of ours, on her couch, and she was explaining to us this dream that she had about using her gifts of art and marketing to help the church, to help the churches that don't have like a full team, a communications team. And so she started talking us through that. And my wife and I were like, you have to do this. Like, this has been living in you for 30 years. Like you got to do this. So
yeah,
we always like to say that my wife kicked her out of the nest. and just said, hey, you got to do this. So Bethany, my wife, and I helped her kind of flesh it out and put meat on the bones and kind of get her to a starting point. And then we helped her, part-time when we could, do a lot of that stuff. And so the company just started to grow and grow and grow and grow. And my position in the company started to get bigger and bigger and bigger while I was still a worship pastor. And so finally in about late 2016, 2017, early, Leanne, who was the woman who started the company, founded the company, she came to me and she said, hey, would you ever consider doing this like full time? And I was like, I don't know, maybe. Yeah. Like I've never really thought about it. And so spent the next couple months with Bethany, just kind of thinking through it, talking through it, praying through it, and got to a point where I was like, maybe I do need to do this. Like, so I went to my pastor at the time where I was on staff, and I just said, hey, this is what we're doing. This is the offer that's kind of hanging out there. What do you think I should do? And he looked at me and he said, you'd be crazy not to do this, Nathan, because you're not moving anywhere. You're staying in town, and you can still lead worship. But this is a way that you can kind of expand your reach for the kingdom, expand your reach for the church, and really make a difference nationwide rather than just in this little bubble of Bradenton, Sarasota, Florida. And so at that point, I went to Leanne and I was like, yeah, let's do that. So it took a few months to transition out of that, but in June of 2017, I flip-flopped and became a full-time vice president of Design 373 and a part-time worship leader at several different churches in the area.
Wow.
So, and then the beginning of last year, 2022, Leanne decided to retire. I mean, she decided months before that, so I knew it was coming. But she retired at the end of 2021, and so I took over the company the beginning of 2022. We are basically what you said, we're a digital outreach company. Like, we help churches reach the people that are outside of their church walls, because one of the things that Leanne and I both realized separately from our own ministry experiences is that as the church grows, the natural gravitational pull is to communicate to the people who are already there, because there's so much to communicate. From events, from things that they need to know about signups, from blah, 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 whatever it is. And typically what gets put on the back burner, even on a subconscious level, is actually communicating with the people that you're trying to reach in your community. And that goes beyond like local church mission work inside the community. I'm talking about just having conversations with people outside of the church, where people are gathered. And one of the things that we learned early on was, well, when the company first started, social media was just kind of like it was a cherry on top of all of the other things that we did. Website builds, branding, graphic design, all of that's marketing. We would say, hey, we'll do all of this for you. And guess what? To add a little bit to the top, we're gonna manage 3 posts on your social platforms.
Yes.
And thought we were the coolest thing ever.
Hey, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
So when you say come in, you're talking about working with a specific church staff or at a specific location, organization somewhere, right?
Yeah. So we focus on churches and even sometimes nonprofits in general.
Oh, okay.
The difference between the two is nonprofits. When you're working with nonprofits, their goal, for good reason, is to raise funds for their nonprofit,
Yeah.
which is a different kind of marketing than you would do for churches. So,
Sure.
but for most of our clients, they are churches and church staff. So we would go into those churches and say, hey, we'll do this, 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 and also we'll do a few posts on your social media. Well,
Yeah.
then it just started to take on a life of its own, as you know, and became almost like the baseline of everything that we do. It's the starting point, because what we found out is over 80% of your community, wherever you live, is on social platforms,
Yep.
2 to 3 hours a day on average. So what we say now to churches is, what would the church, if there was a physical location in your community where you knew that 80% or more of your community was going to physically be at that location at least 2 to 3 hours a day at some point during the day, what would the church do to reach those people?
Right.
And the answer is, we would do anything. Like, we would set up camp in that location just so we could have an opportunity to carry on conversations with people
Yeah.
and build relationships with people outside the church. And so the same is true with social media. It is where people are gathered, whether we like it or not. Like, you can hate social media, but it doesn't change the fact that people are gathered there. And so what we want to help churches do is utilize the leverage of social media in their community, utilize and leverage the algorithms that exist, so that the church can really start to make a difference in the community, for the kingdom and for the church, without it being kind of just icky. I don't know.
Yes.
Without it being weird.
Without being cringy or gross or insensitive or any of those words.
Exactly.
I think that's
exactly. So
that's so important. Please continue. Sorry.
No. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, sorry, I was gonna ask, like, so you said that's kind of become your baseline. Do you still is website and graphic design? Obviously, that's all still part of it. But do you find yourself spending most of your time talking to churches about social media presence?
Yes, that's where we start.
Yeah.
Now
okay.
we still do tons of websites. We do tons of marketing. I mean, depending on what level a church enters into a partnership with us, determines how much and what we do for them. But the biggest difference maker in what we do, because even websites, man, I mean, in today's culture, most people who would consider coming to your church are going to look at your social platforms before they're going to have to go to your website from their social platform. So, you know, that's just the world we live in now. So whether we like it or not. So we kind of want to equip churches with the tools and the strategies and the processes and systems, and put all of that in place so that when our partnership is done, they have everything that they need to be successful in the digital space, including a fully functional and working social media strategy, which most churches don't. They just kind of shoot from the hip, and their social platforms end up being like a bulletin board of events that they're trying to promote, which means nothing to the community outside the church walls.
That's okay. So there's so much I want to ask you about, because like I am a pastor at a local church in New York City. No one comes to our church. I should say this. Everyone who comes to our church says, I've watched you on YouTube. I've been on your Instagram. I've checked out your website. I cannot remember the last time someone has walked into our location and said, what is this? You know, like they recognize that. They'll say, oh, I've seen you. I 2 or 3 weeks ago when you were teaching on. So people are, I think this is important, not only as an outreach tool, but as a as a first impression, as you're saying, like everyone is doing this. If you for people like us New Yorkers, when someone moves to our neighborhood, how did you find our church? How did you find Wellspring? And they say, I Googled churches NYC Queens and you popped up, and then I checked out your Instagram, and then I watched a few of your services because worship is really important to me, or something like that. And then the second thing is I think you're completely right. Like, this is a skill, and there's a reason why you see churches hiring on like communications teams or whatever you want to call it. As a matter of fact, like what you're speaking about right now, I can just say from personal experience, finding someone who can capture a good photo, finding someone who knows what to do with that photo, how to edit that photo, that video, that media, whatever it may be, finding a way to share it, how and when to share it, what to say, where to put it, is a nightmare. It's actually, I am a content creator, and you said the magic word. You said algorithm. It's not just about you've captured a good. It's knowing when to post, how to post, what to say, where to share it. Even there's even data on what time of day you should be sharing information. So my church recently that is actually kind of like a pat on, Patrick's back. Is my pastor recently came to me. I am in my personal life, I am a monetized YouTuber. I don't want to like pat myself on the back too hard, but like my first year getting monetized, I made Nathan $900.
What?
Quit my job status, bro. Quit my job stat. No. So I am so small time, but for months, for over a year, I worked and sweated on YouTube, getting to that point where they now send me a very tiny paycheck every month. And my pastor came to me and said, can you help? Can you we don't care about the paycheck, but like, we need to make better stuff. And you're doing that. Can you help? Can that become a little bit part of your job? Huge pat on my back. But obviously I've got tons of responsibilities. I can't do that. We just hired in New York a small team that we already knew. We were friends with these people. A company that's coming in that basically has a communication strategy. They know how to post. They basically do what you do, but they're local to us. And it's becoming more and more important because this is how people find information, not just on products, not just on people, but on communities as well, whether it's nonprofit or church. So I think what you're doing is, I know some people look at like content creation strategy and communication systems in the church at like, they kind of like, Jesus doesn't need that. But at the same time, I used to be the guy with a table of postcards creating like an every door direct mail postcard campaign to get people, to come to our Easter egg hunt or whatever. But now everything is so digital that what you're doing, it's so funny that what you were doing a few years ago used to be like we can also help you out with this. And now it's the baseline for outreach, communication, etc. I just think that's unreal. And so you're now running that company. Are you the president? Are you the CEO?
I am the president, CEO, owner, everything but the founder.
That is so incredible. And what is significant about the 373?
So, a lot of some people will say, well, was there 372 failures before you made it to 373? And
it's like a Mike Smith 750 at gmail.com or something. Like, no, there's more significance to it than that. But yeah.
Right. So the life verse of the founder, Leanne, is Psalm 37, 3, which is trust in the Lord and do good, dwell in the land and cultivate faithfulness. And so what we try and do as a company is to help churches in the land that they dwell in cultivate faithfulness within their communities. And so that includes everything. And you kind of touched on it just a second ago, but churches are really scared of the word marketing, which is so
Yes.
strange. But maybe that's because of my background. It doesn't I don't think of it that way. But a
Yeah.
lot of churches, we have to sometimes even change our language to not use the word marketing, but outreach, which is kind of like what
Right.
we have done. But it's the same thing,
It is.
when it's all said and done. So, but yeah, one of the things that we found early on was we would sit in front of, this was pre-COVID, we would sit in front of churches staff, and they would say, okay, we know that we need to be better at social media, but we have no idea where to start. Like we
Right.
have we look at all of our what I call hero churches. Like they look at all of these churches like Elevation and Hillsong and Church of the City and Church on the Move and all of this these giant churches, and they go, we want our social media to be like that. And I say, okay, that's a great goal, but that's at point Z, and you're over here at point A, and you
Yep.
can't just expect to jump from point A to point Z instantaneously.
Yeah.
So you have to do the work like that. Those hero churches did the work. They built teams. It was a priority for them. And now they really don't have to do much of anything other than post content, and it gets thousands and thousands and thousands of shares and reach and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we did, we had that conversation so much. And so we got back from a trip one time, and we were like, let's create a social media strategy that's specifically designed for churches, that is scalable. Doesn't matter how big or small the church is, they can use this kind of strategy to increase and expand the reach of their church in their community. And so we spent the next several months just kind of diving into the world of algorithms and what's
Yep.
working for churches and what seems to not work for churches and why does it not work for these churches. And so after all of this research, we came up with what we call the 8 buckets of social media for churches. And it's a
Oh,
strategy. And it's kind of morphed over the years. It started like 6 or 7, we used to call them pillars. And then we were like, no, let's not call them pillars. Let's call them buckets. And then they, based on algorithm shifts, we add a bucket here, take away a bucket there. So it's a constantly morphing kind of strategy depending
Yes.
on where we are in culture at the moment. But we started using that, and it has kind of exploded into what we're experiencing with churches now, and it gives them it gives them guardrails for how to really take advantage of all that the church has from social media to make a difference, and everything flows from that point for us anyway. And I'll be honest with you and tell you that we're certainly not the end all experts of social media. Like,
Well, it's constantly changing as well.
It is, and if
Yeah.
anybody tells you that they're like the guru of social media, don't believe them, because it's I know what I know based on what has worked for us and our churches and our clients.
Yeah.
And that is the avenue that we kind of run down. But there are a lot of great church social media tools out there that people can find. But one of the things that we learned really early with this strategy is all of the buckets that we have created kind of work individually, but also each bucket helps all the other buckets.
Yeah.
Because, well, let me give you an example of like one of the buckets. One of the buckets is called the reach and engagement bucket. So what we know about social media at this point is one of the biggest algorithms that exist right now is the algorithm of conversation. So if conversation isn't happening on your, like if a church has a post about whatever, and if conversation isn't happening within that post, whether it's Instagram or Facebook, because those are the two big ones that we focus on. But if conversation isn't happening on those posts, a lot of times the people that even follow those pages are never seeing the content that's being put out because it's not triggering that conversation algorithm. So the algorithm is like, oh, well, this must not be that important. I'm not going to push it to the people who I'm putting a voice to the algorithm. It's so stupid. But it's true. So I'm not going to push it. But if conversation is happening, then it's telling the algorithm, hey, this must be an important conversation. I'm going to make sure that everybody that follows this page is seeing most of this content.
Yes. Can I say something really quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to go too much down this rabbit hole, but like one thing I've learned about social networking, content creation, and algorithms is whether it's a church or anybody else, we have this false narrative on our mind that it's our job to get people to click on our stuff. What's actually happened with algorithms over the past few years and these apps and these platforms is you're actually trying to get the platform to show your stuff.
Yes.
So if you're on YouTube and you're receiving comments and you're not responding to those comments, YouTube will not share your video with people as much as the creator who responds to every comment, engages with those comments, and has to your point, has conversations going back and forth. Because it's not just posting that great photo. Everybody's posting great photos now. Everyone has a high definition camera in their pocket. But if you can master the art of conversation on that platform, it tells algorithms to share your stuff. Sorry, this is we're bleeding into like another a bucket in my life, which is content creation, which I care deeply about, and it's something that in order to have reach and engagement, in order to have we're sitting around scratching our heads, going, churches. I can speak for my church doesn't care about likes. We care about people knowing. Why don't people know what's going on? It's because our stuff isn't getting shared. Anyway, so I'm totally with you in that. I think that's super important.
Well, and in your world, in especially like YouTube world, I kind of experienced that accidentally in the last 3 months or so, because I posted a video that from my music industry days that included Lance and Joey from NSYNC, Mandy Moore. We were in a video together because Lance and Joey did a movie called On the Line. Okay, I'm just setting the stage. I'm not gonna like show you. I'm not gonna like show you all my records. And
also,
stuff.
I know him.
Crazy.
Also, crazy. I know him as Mr. Fatone. Mr. Fatone. There's no Joey.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's either Joseph or Mr. Fatone. I'm just saying.
Right. So I posted this video like years ago, and I guess somebody commented on it, and I just went in and I started responding to the comments, which I hadn't done in years. Ever. I just post the content. Yeah. I didn't know anything about, like, I wasn't trying to create content. I was trying to do more like time capsule video for me to have for the rest of my life online, And then people started commenting, so I'm commenting back, and wow, they're like, I didn't know this song existed, and I didn't know who are you, and blah blah blah. Yeah. So and then it started happening every day, like multiple comments, and suddenly my video went from a couple of hundred likes to 60,000.
Yep.
Or 60,000 views. It's insane, and it keeps going because it's not that there's more people interested. It's that the platform said, oh, there's engagement here. We want people to watch our stuff. We want them to see ads. We will now promote this video. Exactly. It's crazy. That's so interesting. Can we step into that a little bit when it comes to the church? Because I guess my main, this is a really
this is you have a niche perspective that you're sharing with church, because like you said, churches are scared of the word marketing, but they love the word outreach. They're scared of what's another word? A branding, but they like the word identity or engagement. And I'm with you. Being a part of a church, many churches for most of my adult life, we've always tried to like figure this out, or the church has done nothing, and just whoever shows up, and you kind of create these little Christian clubs that are great and godly, and people are experiencing joy in life. But when the churches I've been a part of have leaned into engagement, reach, marketing, branding, you see people show up that you normally wouldn't see in your church, and they, not always, but sometimes, experience life, experience acceptance, experience joy. Sometimes they become full-fledged followers of Jesus. So to kind of get down to brass tacks, if you were sitting in front of every church right now, or if you were sitting in front of my church, and let's say you just kind of had I haven't even given you the whole, here's what we're doing. What are some of the things you're seeing? Let's start with what are some of the things you're seeing churches do that you're like, stop doing that? Like, if we had asked you, if we had given you permission to say, tell us something that we do that you just know, you're like, stop doing that. And then and then my follow up to that is, what are some things right now that churches can embrace to begin to see engagement and reach in these social networking platforms that are so easy, but we didn't know were possible? So those are my two questions. If you could look at every church and say, stop doing this, are there a couple of things or one main thing? And then in tandem with that, is there something that you would say, start doing this immediately and you will see some results?
Okay, so I'm going to work backwards. So
great.
If I were sitting in front of churches and I would say, you can start doing this immediately and you will see a difference. One of the things let's just start with the church staff, because the reality is, if you don't get buy-in from across the board on the staff level, then nothing that you want to happen is really going to happen, because you have to, as a staff, be the example for the people within your church to utilize social media. Because so you said most churches are scared of the word branding, but they love the word identity. I'm not necessarily even opposed to that, because here's why. Churches get so hung up on the word branding, and they think branding is their church logo. They have these brand guides that have all the colors that you can use, all of the fonts that you can use, all of that stuff. And the reality is, their logo is not their brand. Their brand is their identity in the community, like the perception that people have of them within the community. It's not a logo. It's what people know, it's what people know of you. It's how they perceive who you are as a church, how they perceive your people. And so I'm not so upset about the word identity replacing branding, because it's more true to what they are trying to say. But I wish that they would stop saying, well, our brand guide and our branding needs to be this and this. And no, your brand is what people think of you. And so if I were to say to a church, start doing this today and you'll make a difference, I would start with the staff and I'd say, listen, as you as a person, not the church, but you as a pastor, as a ministry leader at this church, you go on the social platforms of the church and you start engaging with people. That's the biggest difference maker. If you were to see the churches that other than the mega popular hero churches, the average church is the churches who are succeeding in social media have engagement from their staff, engagement from the pastor. Those are the churches that make a huge difference. Wow. We like to teach our churches that we partner with, because most churches, as you know, have staff meetings once a week. And so We like to train churches and say, look, take the first 60 seconds of your staff meeting and have a post picked out before you go into the staff meeting. And for the first 60 seconds, have it even on the agenda, social minute. Like that's what we call it. We add the social minute to your agenda for your staff meeting, have a post picked out on the church page, go into staff meeting, spend the first 60 seconds engaging on that post. If churches would just do 60 seconds of that, it is insane the difference that it makes leading up to everything else that the church is posting. But getting people to do it is like, it's like pulling teeth. And, but if they were to do it, I'll give you an example. So let's see. 2 years ago, 2021, I live in the Tampa Bay area, right? Yeah. So we won the Super Bowl, we won the Stanley Cup, and we were half of the World Series. You know, that was a big deal, the divisional championship of MLB. So they referred to us for a good while, Champa Bay, like, because we had all three great teams. Well, and we don't ever get to brag about sports down here. Like, we historically have been terrible, right? Yeah. So just plain awful. So when we have an opportunity to like brag, we take it because we don't know how long it's going to last, as we found out, right?
Yep.
So then I was about a week before the Super Bowl, before we won. I was on my Facebook feed, and I saw a post from a friend of mine named Nick, and he's one of those Facebook friends. Like I've never really met him or know him. I know a lot of people that he knows and mutual friends, all that stuff. But I've never, ever seen anything that he has posted ever. And so I've realized the only reason I saw that post was he was my other friend, Chris, who I'm good friends with and follow and interact with all the time. Chris interacted with Nick's post because Nick was talking trash about the Buccaneers. And so I thought, you know, in good fun, and in the name of Jesus, I'm going to talk some smack.
Yes.
So Chris and I went back and forth with Nick, just talking. I mean, it was all in fun. It didn't get heated or anything. But the point, I kid you not, for the next 4 weeks solid, I saw every single post that Nick posted every day. Like, it was at the top of my newsfeed. Every day I saw his posts. I never engaged with one other post other than that Super Bowl post that we went back and forth on for, you know, about 30 minutes. And for 4 weeks solid, everything. And then it just kind of dissipated because I wasn't engaging on anything else. But that's what we're trying to build for the church. If they could just understand that concept, it makes a huge difference, because we're trying to get them to take that reach and engagement bucket that I was telling you about. That has typically nothing to do with spiritual things. Like, the content of that bucket is more like content that people are already engaging with on their own personal platforms. We're just bringing that type of content under the umbrella of the church, so that we're bringing the conversation to the church, so that all of the other things that are more rich and deep and thought-provoking and inspiring get seen because of the post about how do you drink your coffee, you know, or do you listen to Christmas music before or after Thanksgiving? Like those real opinionated, you know, kind of things to get people conversing. Yeah. And so if they do that one bucket, that would be the one thing you could do immediately. You could just start asking questions that don't necessarily have anything to do with God or relationship with God, but just are real life questions, right? If you started doing that and started seeing engagement, all of the other things that you're posting would be seen. On the flip side, the other question, what would I say a church needs to stop doing? I would say kind of what I said earlier, just using social media as a bulletin board only. They're treating it as this giant pin board that, hey, here's this event, here's what we want you to do. Come to us, come to us, come to us. And it really just bogs down their social feeds with content that the majority of the people in their community don't even care about. So basically, I would say if a church can stop thinking social media as a broadcast kind of here's what's happening here, and think of social media as more social ministry opportunities to engage in conversation with people, that's the difference maker. And it's a culture shift for most churches. Like it takes a lot of work. It's like turning the Titanic because they've been doing it for so long the same way. It's hard for them to get out of that mindset. You know what I mean?
Can I press you a little bit further on that? So let's just talk about me, for example, and I don't want you to give away all your secrets. So this whole interview is basically free consulting for me, but no. So here's a very likely story in a church community, and you've probably heard this. We announced it on Sunday. Still nobody came. We added announcements to the beginning of our podcast. Still nobody came. We posted it on Instagram. We did the Facebook post. It's on our website. It's still nobody came. Now, obviously, people will show up to things, but I think there's a fear that churches have that if they don't use every platform they have as a bulletin board, that not everyone will hear the announcement. So if I'm sitting there giving you that retort, what do you say to me?
I would say that when you're using those social platforms and all of those avenues, are you just throwing the content out there and hoping that it sticks? Or are you actually hooking people into conversations about it and giving opportunities for people to see those things more and more often? Like, one of the things that churches make the mistake of, they're surprised by Christmas every year. They're surprised by Easter every year. Like, it comes every year. But for
that is so true. I'm sorry, but I felt that so deeply that that is a subtle burn, church staff member who is listening, that you should take and don't get offended, but embrace it and change your way. I'm right now going, oh yeah, Easter's coming. That is so true. We're surprised by Christmas. Please continue.
We're less than 10 weeks away from Easter. And so it's insane. Like, but I get it. I've been there. I've been on church staff. I know that you get sucked into the or down into the weeds so often that looking far ahead becomes really difficult. It becomes one of those tasks that you have to actually work out that muscle of looking forward. And one of the things that we have is we start marketing of those big events like 10 weeks out. And so we have like this guide that we give that it's basically a countdown to the event. Like, here's what you need to be thinking about and doing it 10 weeks out. Here's what you need to be thinking about and doing it 9 weeks out, all the way down to the event. That helps keep those events on the radar and pushing towards the goal of getting people there. I think where churches really make a mistake is they throw the content out there and then they leave it alone, and they hope that people see it. So even if you did ads, on your social pages, even if you did ads, if your people aren't actively liking the four things: like, comment, share, and converse. You do those four things on all of those events, then you're going to have a lot better traction for that event. We like to do all of the things. So we'll do banners, yard signs, if you can have yard signs. We'll even, believe it or not, there are some geographical locations that mailers still actually work.
In my context, I mean, to your point, if you're like sitting there and you're thinking, well, like, okay, whatever. No, but like in my context, I'm currently looking at an apartment building right out this window that is thousands of people. And I'm in an apartment that is a building that is thousands of people. And yes, it costs money, and yes, it takes work, but we're joking about the Every Door Direct Mail campaign that I used to do for our Easter egg hunt. Our Easter egg hunt happens right here on this street, right by the waterfront. And we used to strategically, because we don't want people to come to our free Easter egg hunt to play games. We want to love the neighborhood and provide something for. Sorry, I'm not promoting what I'm trying to do right now is engage and converse about.
Ooh, you're good.
Yeah. No, but like
good.
You take a packet of postcards that goes in every mailbox in that building over there, and you're gonna get what, like 5% of the people. But you're gonna get I think your point stands that, like, yes, that does work. In my context, New York, the most digital place anywhere, we don't have yard signs, we don't have yards,
right?
But postcards still work. I think you're completely right, and I love what you're saying about like I love what you're the practicality of liking, commenting, sharing, and conversing is huge. And then what you said about like you create the thing and leave it alone doesn't work. I think that's I don't know. I just think that's extremely helpful. And maybe like everyone on the planet out there that's like a part of an organization, a nonprofit, a church, maybe everybody knew that. I didn't. I think that's extremely helpful. Right. And you also mentioned COVID, which, I mean, I think that out of COVID, many people who would consider what you do to be unimportant to them realized how important it actually was. Did you find that at all?
Oh, yeah, totally. Like what used to be a nice to have suddenly instantaneously became a need to have, like must have. And so a lot of people would ask us, hey, did your business hurt during COVID? And quite honestly, we didn't feel the effects of COVID until halfway through 2021, because our business grew during COVID because churches were like, we gotta do something, because this is the only thing that we have. Yeah. And so we were able to jump in and help. I think to go just a little bit back, it comes down to brand saturation, or identity saturation, because if realizing that marketing and outreach and branding, all of that stuff, social media, it's not a marathon, or it's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Yeah.
So you have to pace yourself in such a way that if you change your strategy, if you change the way that you do things as a church or a nonprofit or a business or whatever, if you change the way that you do things on social media and marketing in general, you can't expect it to just blow up immediately and go. Sometimes it does, but you can't expect it to just blow up immediately and suddenly you have a 70% increase in attendance for whatever you're doing at the church. It becomes one of the things that we say to people when we meet with them is how we function is we exist as a company to really be the type of company that when that one person in your community who doesn't have a relationship with God, when their life intersects with their need for God, when they get to a point where they go, maybe I need to give this God thing a try. We want their second thought to be your church because they see you everywhere. Like you are literally they can't turn to social media and not see the people of your community sharing things from the church. They're in the community seeing posters or postcards or things. You are literally everywhere. So the natural gravitational pull at that point becomes, I know exactly where I need to go to find hope or give this thing a try. I need to go to so-and-so church because I see them everywhere. And that's what we're trying to do and build for churches, in the sense that you can't just decide to make a shift and expect it to be a home run from the very, very first go. It's a growth process.
It's been really interesting. So my 15-year-old Declan, who you met, who's just like a Spitfire wild man, last night in the middle of my like community group, small group, house group, whatever your church out there calls it, he hit his first 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. And
wow,
that's huge. That's a huge milestone. What people don't know is that in order to get monetized, well, people know this, but like many people don't know, is like in order to get monetized on YouTube, you have to hit 1,000 subscribers and then get 4,000 watch hours in 1 year. And that's the tough one, but it's a huge milestone. And one thing that's been interesting for me to watch my 15-year-old do is come to me, not that I'm some pro, I just do it as well, is to come to me 2 or 3 times a week and be like, Dad, I'm thinking about this. What should I do? Creating a video. I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about this title. Do you think people will click on this title? Dad, I received this comment. Should I respond to it? And to watch him for over a year. He has no staff. He has no, this is all free time. He goes to school. He rides a bus about a couple hours a day to get to and from school. I mean, and here we have, my point is, it's possible. It's possible to tackle that marathon. And I think that more and more resources are becoming available from different companies that make that easier is maybe the wrong word, but make that company or make that marathon more accessible. And I'm going to use like one example, and I know like graphic designers hate this, and maybe you do too, I don't know. But like one thing that I think has been helpful for churches are services like Canva, where it's not like a graphic designer would look at the things that Canva does and go, I do it different. But at least it's a jumping off point where for, a couple $100 a year, you have this, you're able to remove the background from images. You're able to create cool graphics. It automatically resizes them the way you want. It will help you schedule a social media campaign. And again, it's not going to do everything for you. You've got to learn some things, but I'm not trying to promote Canva as much as I'm trying to say, as this becomes more important, there are resources available that help with the marathon. And I kind of wanted to ask you, have there been some things like, are there tools or resources like even before someone talks to you, or even as you're talking to a church or an organization, that you would say, you guys have to start using fill in the blank, like Hootsuite, or, something that helps with social media or something like that? Or is it like, or do you guys stay away from that type of stuff?
I don't know if we stay away from it. I love Canva. I think the churches that can't afford to hire a company like ours or any other company, I think Canva, the pro version, of course,
Yeah.
has some really great resources, and can be content that is good. That's decent. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I am all for doing something. The churches
Do something. Yeah.
that allow the fear of what people will think, how people will respond, what are
Yep.
the comments going to be, and allow that fear to be more paralyzing, and so they end up not doing anything.
Yeah.
That is worse than just putting out consistent content, even if that content is mediocre to not mediocre. In a sense, like you can't just put clip art out there and expect it to, take off. But
Unless you're doing it like
you know what I
ironically.
mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think consistency is a big deal. I think, shocker, this is a big 2023 shocker for Instagram, especially. In 2023, photos are now going to get just as much priority level as reels again.
I did not know that.
Yep, it's happening. So it's really interesting because Instagram started as a photo sharing kind of platform, and just like with everything, it just kind of recycles and comes back around, because I think a lot of people, and even me sometimes included, a lot of people are we watch these reels and these videos most of the time silently. Like we're in a place where we can't have the volume turned up, and we're just like reading the captions more than we're actually watching the actual video, because we're watching it in silence.
That's so true.
And so what's happening is photos, because you're already in the process of your brain majority of the time are reading the captions anyway. You're already in the process of reading. So photos are kind of coming back. So if you have a really engaging, beautiful graphic that has some text on it, it's going to get just as much reach and prioritization. Is that a word?
Yes,
No,
prioritizationalation. There it is.
Yeah, I like that one. Yep. It gets just as much priority as reels.
Man, that's really cool. I love that. I love, insider info. I mean, is always a good thing. And as a matter of fact, like, there are so many, going back to my story on YouTube, there's so many massive YouTube channels that are built just on teaching people how YouTube works, or how Instagram works, or how they became successful on TikTok. And I think that's amazing.
Yep.
The last thing I kind of wanted to ask you, before I just before people can hear about just like how to connect with you or connect with your company, is like, at what point do you think a church needs your company? At what point, if you're looking at like a church's journey, at what point, in your opinion, like what are some of the telltale signs that they've hit a wall that your company fixes?
I think, first of all, I would say that a lot of churches will call us and they are desperate for a quick fix. They think that we can fix their internal communication just as much as we can fix their external communication. And a lot of churches make the mistake of really getting excited about when I talk about reaching the community. They get really excited, but the issue for them is their internal communications sucks so bad that what they want to accomplish externally won't ever really happen, because they're so dysfunctional internally. And so there is no quick fixes. But But I think to answer your question, when a church would be ready for us would be if they take a really good look at their social platforms, if they take a really good look at their website. How old is their website? How much content is on their website? Because simplicity is the name of the game with web design in today's culture. And so how simplified is it? Is your website, if you look at your website, do you have to go 3 pages deep to find service times, or 3 pages deep to find the address even of the church and how to get there? Those kind of things. Does your children's ministry page have 14 sub pages? Like, it's just, no one's reading that content. And so websites really these days need to be just
landing pages are where it's at. I mean,
oh, dude, I'm telling you, with a link tree and landing pages and social platforms, man, you can pretty much do anything a $30,000 website can do. So I think that from a social media standpoint, if you honestly take a look at your social platforms, like if you're watching this or listening to this, and you really want to do a deep dive into where you are currently sitting with your church platforms, look at them. And what do you see? Do you see just event after event after event? Do you see any conversation happening? Do you see any engagement at all? Like liking, loving, commenting, any of it? If you don't, then you're ready for us. If you don't see that kind of stuff, if you look at your communications team and there is no plan, like they're just saying, typically communications directors for churches feel like they're out on an island by themselves anyway. Like they are so alone in what they do, and they're probably one of the most underappreciated positions, because it's literally their job to get all of the communication that's happening at the church out to the masses. And so I think if you look at your communication director and ask them, do they have a plan? Do they have a calendar of what should be taking place on social platforms? Do they utilize the conversation? Do they utilize groups? I mean, we didn't even talk about that. Groups is a huge thing right now because it has just as much priority as pages, and you can do more inside of groups. So we encourage, instead of a church having like a main page and then the student ministry having their own page and the children's ministry having their own page and the women's ministry having their own page, have the church page and then as the umbrella, and then all of those ministries as groups.
Are you talking about Facebook?
Umbrella. Yeah, Facebook.
Okay.
In as far as groups are concerned, yeah. And just taking an account of go to your Instagram feed, like go to your actual Instagram profile and look at all your pictures together, and what are they saying? What's the message that you're putting out? If you're only putting out messages of here's what we are offering, here's what we have, or the occasional Bible verse, or streaming your pastor on the weekend, that's just not enough anymore. It's just not. And you have to do things if you want to reach your community. Now, if you're a church, whether I agree with you or not, if you're a church that's completely content with talking to your people in the church, then we're not the company for you.
Right.
Which
is fine.
Serve the churches too. Yeah, totally fine. Yeah, I'm okay with us not being the company for you. Because you're not ready for us, and it would be a tug of war with you anyway if we were to partner with you, because we're trying to get you to think a certain way and shift your culture, because the staff culture has to shift before the congregation culture shifts.
Dude,
dog barking.
What's the dog's name again?
Sorry. Bella. Hang on a second.
I think that is I think you just gave the clearest description of, like when you're needed and who's actually going to work with you. And I kind of want to end there because like what I want to do is ask you, all of your secrets and things like that. But we can't just give that away. Also, I have to end this recording because you just reminded me that Easter is 10 weeks away and no one remembers that until 2 weeks before. Right. So before we get out of here, just where can people find you and your company? Where can they connect with you, and where are you present online where people can find out more about your company and what you do?
Yeah, so you can go to our website, d373.com. That's d373.com. Yeah. Again, d373.com. You can find us on social platforms. You can find me on my username on both Facebook and Instagram is Nathan Gaddis, Nathan Gaddis. That's Gaddis, Gaddis. I'm sorry, I had to.
You have to. Yep. Basically, the story. The story there is one day I called Nathan and decided to pray for him and basically pronounced his name incorrectly for 30 minutes. And after that, heartfelt, spiritually driven, fire falling down, worshipful experience prayer. The only thing he had to say was, thanks, man. That's not how you say my name. And I've been offended ever since. Dude,
you were offended.
Yes, good correct. Sir. Yes. Well, that was so helpful and so incredible. I'm so thankful for your time. And if I feel like anybody who listening to this says, this is important to me, at the very least, I just want to encourage you to reach out and check out Nathan's stuff, check out his company's stuff. It has been a treat to talk to you. I can't wait to do it again. And I guess I'll just see you in the next one, man.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Thank you, bud. I'll see you soon. Thank you so much for joining us. Links to everything you need can be found in the description. And as always, if you need to get a hold of us, you can shoot us an email at theundignifiedworship@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram @thisisundignifiedworship. We'll see you next time.